When I first started looking into cargo bikes, the advertising typically featured a mother commuting with small children. In my mind, I was assuming these commutes with small children were very short, just a few kilometers. This was probably because research has shown that the average distance ridden on a bike for urban commuting is only 2 to 4 kilometers. Also, cargo bikes currently seem to be more popular in Europe, and European cities tend to be less car dependent, so trips to school or shopping should be, on average, shorter than North America. But what about using a cargo bike with older children? Older children should be able to ride a few kilometers on their own bike, so a cargo bike is unnecessary for short commutes. A cargo bike could be an option for longer commutes, especially if there is some sort of other constraint. In this video, I'm going to share my experience commuting by cargo bike with my youngest daughter. The commute is just under 10 kilometers, and my constraint is that my daughter was at a sports camp. It would have been difficult to expect her to ride 10 kilometers, play sports all day, and then ride 10 kilometers home. She would also have to repeat that for 5 straight days. Let's look at the nudges that influenced whether I drove or biked, starting with the route. The main factor influencing whether I pick up my daughter in the van or by bike was that my wife had the van. She dropped our daughter off in the morning and went to work. Her workday is longer than the sports camp, so she was unable to pick up our daughter in the afternoon. This image shows the route that I would have taken to drive home after picking up my daughter. The distance is just under 8 kilometers and, because much of the route is on a freeway or other high-speed roads, it takes just 11 minutes, not including traffic or stopping for red lights. This second image shows the route that I took on the cargo bike. The distance is over 1 kilometer longer, and the duration was 2.5 times longer, so there's a nudge to drive in order to save some time. Fortunately, the ride was entirely on multi-use paths and residential roads. This made the ride low stress and enjoyable, which was a nudge to bike. Let's look at some of the parts of the route to see why it was enjoyable and one other factor that encouraged me to ride. As you can see from the video, I was on a multi-use trail along residential streets to start the ride. At this point, I turned onto another multi-use path that descends into the river valley. The top of this multi-use path is a little challenging on a cargo bike due to the switchbacks. I did not encounter anyone coming up the hill, so I could use the entire path around the corners. Gravel across the path on a corner is a bit of a hazard. This T intersection is a little awkward. It's a little difficult to see around the corner due to the bushes. I have had a few surprises in this area. Right after the T intersection, there's not a proper curb cut or the ability to get on the road heading in the direction I wish to go. You may remember I said the drive takes just 11 minutes. That's without congestion. You can see traffic beginning to back up on the bridge in the other direction. It's common for this bridge to become congested at peak times. I've never experienced congestion on the multi-use path, so that's a nudge to ride the bike. When I was initially looking at a cargo bike, I was not thinking about getting one with a motor. I'm now so glad I did get the motor. On the flats, I use the lowest boost mode to maximize my range, but on hills, I use the highest or second highest boost. I would not be able to climb these hills without the motor. When I am not carrying anything, I can climb hills faster than I would on my racing bike. The rest of the ride is on residential streets. As you can see from the video of the ride, the route was low stress and enjoyable. I was able to get in my exercise for the day. Having a motor allowed me to climb the hills without an extreme amount of effort. These were all nudges to ride the cargo bike. The only nudges to drive were the shorter distance and time. Poor weather would have been another nudge to drive instead of bike. My daughter was comfortable in the cargo bike and could rest, so she didn't have a preference to drive or bike. Maybe she enjoyed the novelty of the bike over being in the van. In summary, commuting with an older child in a cargo bike is very manageable. I do live in a car-dependent city, so driving would have taken less time and distance. Weather and level of traffic stress were also favorable in this example. My daughter took the bus home one day due to rain. I'm also willing to ride on busier roads when I'm alone as opposed to when riding with my family, so I might have chosen to drive if the route had a high stress section along as a barrier. That concludes this episode of Bike Bike Nudge Nudge. If you enjoyed my example of using a cargo bike to commute a longer distance with an older child, please consider liking the video. If you would like to see more of my cargo bike adventures, please consider subscribing.